Risk management, in particular, was a glaring weakness under Sullivan, whatever Gallagher's other shortcomings. He didn't have the keen sense for when to take a risk and when to pull back, and of course, he had all the information he needed as six-figure tips because when Han Gremberger demanded it, he got regulatory meetings that Gremberger had conducted about risks were cancelled by Sullivan, who bumped most risk decisions to underlings. Under Sullivan, the risk managers were almost entirely dependent on the division's heads for information. They often didn't have enough information to push back in areas where excessive risks might be building up, and they treated each division's risks as individual issues, never looking across the entire corporation to see if there were company-wide risks that needed to be addressed. AIG Securities Lending Programs, which was run on the investment division, was a classic example of the company's risk management failings. That was the program in which, for a fee, AIG would lend out its securities to short sellers who bought up cash collateral. Then it will invest the process in short-term securities that could be sold quickly when the short seller wanted his cash back. At the end of Greenberger's last 4 years, 2004, AIG had already begun the dangerous practice of investing some of the cash in mortgage banking securities, which generate a higher return from AIG but were hardly the kind of short-term liquid securities that could easily be sold. In late 2005, the executives in charge of the securities lending program went to Bob Lewis, requestions that the company raise the limit on the securities he was allowed to purchase in the mortgage market. He also wanted to rev up the program itself, which at the end of 2004 had a balance of 53 billion dollars. He made this request at the very same time that AIGFP had decided to stop insuring the super senior tranche because the supreme underwriting standards had deteriorated so badly. A well-run risk department would have immediately realized that one AIG division was asking to take more risks in the exact area where another division were better versed in these kinds of securities was cutting back. A good risk manager would have said no, but Lewis did not say. Instead, he cut a deal, as he later testified before the financial crisis inquiry commission. He agreed to raise the limit, but insists that the securities lending program only invested in the highest quality residential mortgage-backed securities, no CDOs. He added, but while the securities the investment division bought weren't CDOs, where they were still securitized subprime mortgage that had same underwriting problems that FP was worried about. By the end of 2006, the balance on the securities lending program had risen by $20 billion to $73 billion, and by the end of 2007, it had risen to $83 billion, by which time clients were using to return the securities they had borrowed and get their cash back. Because the mortgage banking securities AIG owned were impossible to sell, the securities lending program began to have cash shortfalls, $6.3 billion by the end of 2007, and staggering 1 quarter later. The inability to return cash to clients in the securities lending programs was one of the things what would eventually bring. Not longer after was bailed out by the federal government. Larry Fink, who had been brought in to help the company sort through its problem, was shown the details of AIG's securities lending program. In all my years, he exclaimed, I have never seen such this disregard for managing money. And they were was the relationships between AIG and between Sullivan and Cassano. If other division told headquarters a little as they could get away with, FB told headquarters even less. Cassano is used to meet with Greenbacher regularly. Cassano and Sullivan rarely meet. One Furman FP's executive says that in 3 years he saw Sullivan in the Wilton, Connecticut office only once, as little as Sullivan knew about, say, AIG's Herling leasing business. He knew even less about its derivatives business. Cassano did little to alienate him. For the most part, Cassano dealt with an AIG executives named Bill Dolly, who has head of AIG Financial Service Divisions, which included was nominal Cassano's boss. Mostly they fought. On the other hand, Sullivan had so many other fish to fry that it was easy to leave Joe Cassano alone. By all too obvious measures, he seemed to be running a shop that was at the top of this game. In 2006, the division made nearly in profits. Merely it was not only helping income statement but also minting millionaires, since the division still kept around a third of its profits as business. Cassano later acknowledged that they made around during his time at AIG, although his lawyer claimed that $70 million of the was the deferred compensation that he lost when the AIG was bailed out by the government. As for Rick's hits talking, no one could really see any significant problems on the horizon. The total national value of AIG derivatives business was $2.66 trillion. Of that, some was in the credit default swap book. Of that, FP insures a mere $16 billion in multi-sector serious range.